All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to this week's episode of Mocktail Minutes. This is Bailey.
And this is Brianna.
And today we have a special guest. We have Katie on, and we actually have Gannon on today if you're watching the video. So we have two guests. I am drinking the new Poppi flavor. It's the orange cream. So if you like those creamsicles, is that what they're called?
Yeah.
That's exactly what they taste like. It's pretty good. And apparently they're coming out with another new flavor too.
I'm still on my Electrolyte powder plus kick, the watermelon from my last episode. It literally tastes like a Jolly Rancher. It's so good. It's so good. But I'm having that with a little bit of creatine. So I'm back to working out.
Oh, yes.
Consistently. Oh, yeah.
Perfect. And then, Katie, do you want to introduce yourself and share what mocktail you're drinking, if you have one today?
Yes, thank you. So my name's Katie Pipinich, and I know Bailey and Brianna from Metabolism Makeover. I'm a dietitian. I really kind of focus and specialize in postpartum. And then I'm also a board certified lactation consultant. So I live in Montana. I have 2 kids, and I have had my own practice since 2020. So I do kind of a whole gamut of things within my business. But today we're really going to be talking about my role as a postpartum dietitian and board certified lactation consultant. And I have some coffee, and I'm also drinking after I finish that, I have raspberry salt LMNT in water, and I added a little bit. I'm trying out some of the colostrum. I know it's kind of a fad, but I've done some research, so I'm doing a little bit of colostrum in it.
Oh, nice. What brand did you order? When did you start taking the colostrum? Have you noticed any difference or anything?
I kind of have. Of course, I was like I would say I was like very questioning it as a dietitian, because it became very big with like just everybody promoting it and everybody should take it. But I had a stint like from Christmas time to May where I was sick. Like I had influenza. I don't think I've ever had influenza in my life. I got strep throat twice, a stomach bug. So it was kind of obvious. I did some gut testing that showed that my immune system was really like on overdrive and needed some support. So that's when I added it in. I started with the Armra brand just because it was the easiest to get and it's really pricey. But then another friend of mine who's a functional medicine dietitian recommended another brand. I can't think of it, but it's a little bit more medical grade colostrum. So the Armra brand though, for like it's serving its purpose, it like dissolves really good in any drink. And knock on wood, like I have felt like, and it could just be summertime, right? So it could be that, but I feel like it has helped a little bit just with my immune system. So yeah.
And is it unflavored?
I get the unflavored. Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I've been telling people. I think the most benefits are for your immune system. I don't know much of the other, like the ones that are like, it'll be fat burning. And like, for me, I'm like, colostrum isn't usually used during a time of major fat burn.
No, I don't think so. I was worried about the hormones in it because of being like, obviously from, cow's milk. And I was like, as women, we already have all these like hormone disruptors and like things that are like spiking our hormones or dropping our hormones. So I did quite a bit of research on that before I started taking it because I've had issues with that postpartum and since having babies. And so there's really like very little to none in this colostrum, which is nice. But yeah, I think the immune function, maybe some like anti-inflammatory type function that would go hand in hand if you had certain things. But I mean, I'm a big advocate of like testing, making sure that you need it because it's A, not cheap, and B, like we don't need to be like just throwing things in our body. But I was willing to give it a shot after my second bout of strep throat. Like, okay, something's gotta give. So
that's no joke. Strep throat is no. I had that for the first time in like years, like a year ago, and I'm just like, I don't ever remember being this sick in my life.
No, it was miserable. And then when I got it a month later, I'm like, okay, I'm all set on this. Yeah. So I mean, I think for some people it's beneficial. I probably won't take it long term, but I felt like I just was my poor immune system was like not thriving. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like Brianna mentioned, a lot of times I feel like on TikTok, they talk about it a lot associated with weight loss or fat loss or anything, which honestly, I feel like a lot of supplements, somehow it gets related back to weight loss or fat loss. So then I think that's what really gravitates a lot of people towards them. And I mean, if it's affecting your gut health, then yeah, maybe it does affect weight loss and
right. Yeah, there might be like a snowball effect, but it's like a much bigger picture.
Yeah.
it's not just like take this twice a day and your metabolism will like speed up, right? Like it's sold on a lot of,
up.
yeah. Yeah. I think it's probably like supporting gut health, supporting immune function. So then you have more energy, like it all kind of snowballs.
Yep. And so I guess speaking of that, today we are talking about kind of like the postpartum life, but also just mom life in general, because we do have a lot of moms that listen to the podcast. So we'll start with like kind of postpartum and then maybe kind of like move through the years of in general topics. And with just speaking on weight loss, I feel like postpartum, there's a lot of pressure around weight loss, kind of having your bounce back time. And especially with clients that I've worked with who are breastfeeding, they're like, I'm breastfeeding, but I'm not losing weight. And it seems really frustrating because, I mean, even in school, we are taught like, oh, if you breastfeed, that helps you get back to your pre-pregnancy weight. So then we have this idea that, okay, I'm going to get right back to my pre-pregnancy weight. If I don't, like, there's something wrong with me. So do you want to talk a little bit about like that mindset around the bounce back, or maybe things to focus on besides just getting back to that pre-pregnancy weight?
Yeah, definitely. So this is something I see a lot with my clients too. Even breastfeeding moms that I'm helping like very, very early postpartum are already asking questions about, how to get that back. And I think, so I always think of it as we have to look at the fact that everybody's different. So when all three of us had babies, we were all at a different spot with our hormones, right? Like we might have been on hormonal birth control for 10 years and then off it for 5. And so your body was in a different spot regulating hormones. And so that, in my opinion, and with research, really leads to how every woman is different. Some people gain weight while they're breastfeeding. Some people lose weight while they're breastfeeding, but then gain it all back when they wean. That happened to me after my first baby. And I was like, what the heck? Like, this is bizarre. But, we have to think about what else is going on inside your body. So did you have a super stressful pregnancy? Did you lead up to pregnancy with tons of hormone issues? And now you're going to have, a little bit more trouble getting those regulated postpartum. So there's just so many different things. Other things to think about. Some people start birth control early, like at that 6-week visit. For some, that might like feel like it regulates their hormones, but it could also impact their weight. So I think just remembering that everybody's different. It always reminds me of like this one thing I saw when you're at the gym and like someone's just killing it on the treadmill next to you. And then you're like barely move, you're walking leisurely to get some neat movement in. And there's like that girl's story is that she has like really disordered exercise habits, right? So I'm comparing myself to her and she's probably looking at me like, I wish I could kind of just chill like that. So I think just kind of remembering that everybody's so different and not comparing it to other people. And then think about all of the different pillars. So you guys talk about this a lot on the podcast. We talk about it a ton in MM and with clients, but it's not just eating. It's not just movement. It's all of those other things that affect you and your metabolism in the postpartum period. And some of them are just a little bit out of our control. So lack of sleep, Bailey can probably attest to that, right? I still can, and my youngest is 4. So like those types of things wreak havoc on our metabolism, and your body has to put the emphasis and the energy to like, okay, let's keep Bailey functioning today because she didn't sleep at all. So it doesn't have enough extra fuel to put to that fire of losing weight and getting back to pre-baby weight, or like feeling like, you're at a more normal spot for your body. So I think just giving yourself grace for one, remembering everybody's different, but then when you are at a good spot, and it's different for everybody. Some people feel like ready by 6 or 8 weeks postpartum to kind of get back in a groove. For some, it's closer to 6 months. It just depends. You want to really focus on the whole picture, making sure that you're eating enough, making sure that you're not over exercising. A lot of like pelvic floor injuries can happen when people just like go way back into it too quickly. And then looking at a place of like, okay, I know I'm not sleeping great, but are there little things? I love to help my like new moms that I help with breastfeeding navigate, okay, but can you hand the baby over to dad or some support person at 8 and just go to sleep until they feed again, right? Sometimes we are just in this state of like fight or flight, like I'm the only one, I have to stay awake. If he's awake or she's awake, I have to be awake. So navigating like, are there little windows where you can sleep, like, and someone else can help you with that? if you're feeling a ton of stress, like, is it a mental health type thing that we need to just kind of have a community or a mental health professional talk to you about it? So I think looking at the big picture rather than A, being hard on yourself for not losing weight quickly, and B, blaming it all on like food and exercise. It's kind of a long-winded answer, but
no, yeah. And I think there's been a lot of pressure for me as like a weight loss dietitian. And I mean, a lot of my life is shared publicly.
Yeah.
By choice. Obviously, no one's forcing me to show up on Instagram, but I mean, it is my job. And part of it is kind of being open and honest and vulnerable and kind of sharing everything. And a lot of people have assumed like, oh, you're already like back to your normal weight, you're in your pre-pregnancy clothes, like you're doing great. I'm like, I mean, yeah, I am in some of my pre-pregnancy clothes, but it's like my gym shorts that stretch. I was like, okay, we're doing pretty good. I try to wear jean shorts and yeah, they don't fit. So I think I tell my clients all the time, like, give yourself grace. But I think it was hard for me to like take my own advice. So I had to stop and be like, you know what, you just had a baby 4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
It's okay. And kind of readjusting my life too, because at first, like, I was barely eating throughout the day. I was drinking maybe 20 ounces of water. And so that wasn't obviously doing myself even any favors there. And I'm the one who tells people to do these things every day. So I definitely get it. It's hard to navigate with really any lifestyle changes with, okay, how am I going to adjust now?
Yeah. And I think that's the huge piece is like, we are like our own worst critic for one, but then, yeah, being dietitians or like just anyone that feels like, you know, they were really focused on health and wellness before. And then, like you said, going to like, did I even eat today? Have I taken a sip of water? Like, I remember with my first, she had a tongue tie and it was just like a cluster, like her whole first 2 weeks of life. And I remember walking out the door to drive like an hour and a half away to get her tongue tie released finally. And my husband's like, have you eaten? And I grabbed like a piece of bread and a piece of cheese. And that's what I ate. Like and looking back, I'm like, what was I doing? But like, there is so much going on. And you put so much of the emphasis on the baby, which is like our maternal instinct, right? And that's good. But then we have to kind of put ourselves in the picture at some point, because then looking back, it's like, then that can cause really like long-term hormone issues, right? When you're just so hard on your body through that postpartum season and beyond. So yeah, I think that's really good that you had that kind of realization, but it's still hard and you have to feel good. So I always talk to moms about like, you don't have to wait to feel good, but we have to take some of that pressure off of this like bounce back mentality, because you just were pregnant for 10 months, birthed a baby, and now you're trying to keep that small human happy and healthy all day. Like, that's a lot. You're recovering from either C-section or vaginal delivery.
I think that pressure, honestly, I think it just kind of carries into the rest of motherhood. And I see a lot of moms, and even from experience, it's almost like you're living in this like survival mode where you never really truly find out how to like get back to, how do I just feel good and feel like myself? And I think a lot of moms get really stuck with that. So what are like the most common reasons why you see moms getting burnt out? Because I don't think we talk about that enough. I think we're just like, do it all, do it all, do it all. And then we're just harder on ourselves.
Right. Yeah, for sure. I think this is just, there's so many different components. I saw something the other day that kind of resonated in this space. And I think like, Bailey, you'll probably relate in some way, but especially as your kids get older, like Brianna's, you'll relate. It said, I don't want like time away from my kids. I just want like someone to do all the other things that is like constantly on my mind, so I can just have a moment of like fun, right? And it showed this mom like running around on the beach playing with her kids, and her like parents and the dad of the kids and everybody were like making phone calls and making lunches and like doing all the things she should do.
She's like, I'm not doing it.
Yeah. Like, I'm just like, here I am. I'm just going to live my life today. So I do think personally, and then from what I see with other moms, is like just that mental load. Like, we are taking on, and it's different, right? So like when you have a 4 to 6 week old, you're taking on like, are they like pooping and peeing enough? Like, I remember like holding my baby up to make sure they weren't yellow for like jaundice, you know, like you're taking on all these other stressors. But then as they get bigger, like my daughter's going to be in 2nd grade, and like, are girls being like mean to her? And like, is she feeling like, you know, so like it just becomes different, right? So it continues as you become, even my mom will say it about like current life. Like, you know, I'm 37 and she'll be like, I still worry about you guys. So I think that mental load of like, oh, are they due for dentist appointments? Like, did they go to the doctor before school? Are they enrolled for school? Did we pay tuition? Do they have lunches today? Was it dress up day? Like all of those things. And then we also are a lot of times trying to maintain a full-time job and then some, maintain a marriage, maintain friendships. So I think the burnout comes from just all of it. And then a lot of it is not nurturing ourselves because we put ourselves to the back burner. And that's at no fault of ours as women, as moms, but it just happens. And so that's why I think things like metabolism makeover and one-on-one coaching and like postpartum help are so key, so that we put that emphasis back. Because if that mental load's not going to go away, like you could be, you know, give away the task of making lunches if you have help or something, but that's just your maternal like mom instinct that you're going to do that. So we really just have to support ourselves with, you know, the way we're moving our bodies. Mindset work is huge. Just kind of getting out of our own way so that at least we're nourishing ourselves so we can continue to do all of that, but feel like we're thriving rather than like survival mode.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned like even metabolism makeover. And I actually talked about this on Instagram, my stories yesterday, is just having support from your village, whether it's online or literally the people around you. But it's been kind of cool to see people that I know through metabolism makeover, like just members or people that I've worked with, like they just check in, they ask how Gannon's doing, they ask how I'm doing. And so I would say any like new moms, like lean into that support and just talk to people. I think that has been super helpful. And like you said, it is where like I don't necessarily need help like holding him, feeding him. Like,
right.
Like I want my house to be dusted type of thing. Or like I wanted to just be like cleaned how I like it cleaned. Just those random things that we don't really think about.
Exactly. And I think those are the things that like why I became so passionate about postpartum, and I'm like, you know, building a community kind of around that. And because those are the things that we don't necessarily like, or we're not like able to vocalize it because we appreciate help in any way. But that I remember after our second baby, and it was like the middle of COVID, well, like kind of the beginning of COVID when everything was shut down. And my husband would like come home and he was so helpful. He was doing like all the things like dishes and like, but I had been home all by myself all day with like a 3.5-year-old and a newborn. And so I was like, for my mental capacity at that time, it was more helpful for him to either just hang out with us. So I had some like adult interaction, or to like give me 5 or 10 minutes, you know, like take the baby, take my older daughter. And so I think being able to vocalize that and having a community of other moms to kind of help you. And I love like the idea too, when you know a friend or family member has had a baby, don't just say like, let me know if I can help, but just like drop off coffee, drop off dinner, you know, like those kind of things, because we are the worst at asking for help generally. And when you're in the thick of it, sometimes you don't even know what would be helpful. So I think that's a really good point.
Yeah, the dropping off dinner, we are super lucky with our family. We had people dropping off dinner for the first 2 weeks. It was amazing and so helpful.
Yeah. Those are the things, and you probably wouldn't have asked for it, right? If like they didn't just do it authentically. So those are things that I always try to think about. It's like, don't just like, oh, let me know if I can help, but instead just like do something that you know would be helpful.
Yeah, I mentioned mindset. So any tips around changing your mindset to focus on you when we are so consumed like with our kids, no matter again what age, because there's always gonna be something we're worried about.
Yeah, I think mindset work is huge, and it is also one of the pieces that oftentimes doesn't get focused on. And so, you know, I think there's so many different things you can do. Finding someone that helps you with mindset can be huge, because we aren't always able to like even see our own stories that we're telling ourselves. And so, you know, working with someone like Lindsay Chambers, who's in this community a lot, and like I know I worked with her after my second baby, I think it was, and just having someone to put that emphasis back on you is really helpful. But just small things that are so tangible, like picking a couple non-negotiable things for yourself every day. in the postpartum season and then beyond. So like for you right now, Bailey, it might be like, okay, I'm going to take a shower every day and go outside for a minimum of 15 minutes because I know that's going to make me feel better. My mindset's going to be better. And then as you progress in motherhood, it might pivot. So like for me, it's like, I'm going to do 20 or 30 minutes of like some kind of movement on my own every day, because a lot of times it's bringing the kids with me, which is great, but that's not really like helping my mindset. Things that also I think help are just recognizing, it's kind of just that root cause approach. Like what is causing the most stress or the most burnout, recognizing that, and then trying to take some things like off that plate. So like, if you are the primary person that's doing all the things, can you ask for help with a couple things? Like those are going to help with mindset. And then just learning how to recognize when you're overwhelmed and taking a little step back. So that self-awareness piece is really huge. And then I think it has to be said too, like in that postpartum season, especially, but and beyond, if you are feeling like really anxious or depressed, like those are true things that are, oftentimes caused by hormones, exacerbated by postpartum life. So then really communicating that to someone like your provider, your spouse, like if you have a dietitian on your team, they could help you get the right services for that. So I think also recognizing that sometimes mindset stuff is just like setting non-negotiables, making time for yourself. Other times it's like a deeper rooted issue, and it could be postpartum anxiety, postpartum depression, and those things, you're not alone in, and you just need to make sure that you're able to address those as well.
Yeah, I definitely like the non-negotiables.
Yeah. I think that's like so tangible, because then it takes the pressure off like your huge to-do list and brings it down to like 2 or 3 things.
Yes. I would say like mine right now would be sitting down for breakfast. Like once he's doing his morning nap, like I sit down, I eat breakfast. And then other thing would be like going outside for a walk. I take him with me, but it's like he loves being outside. I love being outside. So we'll just go on a walk. And then I would say the third thing is, the shower, where that is the point where like I'm doing better with asking for help, allowing people to help me, or just like not feeling like I have to be in control 24/7. So then it's been super nice. Like Josh will give him a bath, and then I'm like, I can actually take a shower and like not just like a hurry up and rinse off. Like I'll wash my hair, I'll wash my face.
Not like checking out to see if you hear him every 5 seconds.
Yeah, like it's just my
phantom
me
cry.
time, and that has been super helpful.
Yeah. And I think control is a big piece. Like what you mentioned, that is hard. And like as a mom, that is your instinct to like just keep baby like close to you, and which is awesome. But being able to like trust yourself, trust your family members or whoever's close to you to be able to support is huge. And that was really hard for me with my first baby. And then I was like, I'm going to do so much better with that with my second. And then it was like worldwide, like shut down pandemic. Nobody could help me. I'm like, well, that didn't work out well. But, I think that is huge, being able to just say, okay, like I need 15 or 20 or 30 minutes and he'll be fine. Like it might not be the same way you do it, but he'll be fine. They'll be great. And 9 times out of 10, they're more chill for their dad, and they'll just probably sleep the whole time.
And I think it's like a mixture. I think it's a mixture of like control, but also like the guilt. Like I should be able to do it all. Like, why can't I do it? I can do it. And like just piling more on your plate. I think, and I don't know, maybe, and Bailey, you can correct me if I'm wrong, because I feel like we're moving away from this, but I also don't have small babies anymore. But I feel like it was like the mom guilt was super strong. And now it's like not so much. Now it's like, okay, if I need to leave the house or if I need help, cool, I'll ask for it. Like, no big deal. But when they were young, it was like, no, I can do it. I'm Superwoman, like trying to prove to the world, like, I could still do all the things that I did as great as I did it. And I'm feeling great.
No, yeah. And I would say, like, I mentioned the bath time. Like, at first I was like, no, I have to be there. Like, I have to be there. I can't miss bath time. Like, Josh can handle bath time. And that's like their thing now. Like, they do bath time together.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would say mom guilt definitely there. We're working on it.
Yeah. And I think it comes in different like waves and capacities. Like, I remember feeling it like when after I had my first baby, like went back to a full-time hospital job, and like, you could just like it was very like judgy if you had to miss work because the baby was sick, or like I would have to step out of like big meetings to go pump, and like, you know, that kind of guilt where I can sense like what Brianna was saying is like, you're like trying to like do it all. Like, I'm not going to miss this meeting, but like, I feel like my boobs might explode. Like I need to go pump, but like, so there's just absolutely no in between. You're just like doing things for everybody else all the time. And that's where also a lot of that burnout comes from too, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So with really any stage that you are at as a mom, how do you think it's best to kind of include kids with your healthy habits that you're working on? Because sometimes I feel like it is that isolating piece where it's like, whether you're working on weight loss or whether you're just like, I just want to be healthier, I want more energy, I want to just feel good, it can feel super isolating to like, okay, well, now I have to take time away for my kids to do this. But I think it helps to come from an approach of how can you include your kids? So any ideas of how to just include them?
Yeah. So I think different stages, depending on like, you know, what it gets harder at different ages to include them because like a workout at home or something is going to be impossible with like certain ages, unless they're just real chill and they're going to sit there. But I think that another piece of just including them is like for like with my kids, so they're 4 and 7 now. I really explained to them like why movement is important, why it's important for me to go to this workout class or, you know, whatever it is. So I think just being really open with them, and from a young age, they understand, like, especially my daughter, I've been talking to her about it just like in a healthy way of like, this is why we go do this. And this is, you know, so good for everybody. And I think they really can understand it at like their own level. And so that's one piece, because I think that including them is awesome, but sometimes it just puts more pressure on moms. I've also seen it where it's like, okay, kind of like what Brianna said, like, I'm going to do it all. I'm not going to have anyone help with my baby. I'm going to stay. I'm going to do this 45-minute workout. I'm not going to miss any of it. And that is kind of setting yourself up for just like a stressful situation. So I think when you do include them in it, it's awesome. But I would just give yourself grace and know that like you're going to stop to have to go help someone in the potty or get them a snack or whatever. So when I do like workouts with my kids, I know that's going to be the case. Just a couple of years ago, actually, we have like we live in like a cul-de-sac, and inevitably I would be going for a walk. Everybody wants to come with me, right? The kids at least. And we would get like, I don't know, 50 feet from our house, and it would be a cluster. There'd be fighting. I'd be carrying a stroller or like, I don't know, just a mess. So I finally started this where I'd do like 1 or 2 loops with them. And then I would transition. They'd go back home with my husband, and I would go do like 2 or 3 loops on my own. And I think like that was a really great balance, because before I was just doing that, I would get no movement, and then I'd just be frustrated with the whole situation. But adding them into it, but also being realistic that like I still wanted to kind of move my body and get some time to myself was also really key. So I think there's lots of ways. I think you can talk to them about it as they get older. One thing that helps me is like what we're doing is modeling for our kids. And so that's really important to me. Like we hear about like on TikTok, like different I don't even have TikTok, but like on Instagram, I guess TikTok sounds cooler, but like you hear about moms that were really restrictive with their eating or really overexercised, right? And that was modeled to their kids. And then like that gets carried on. So I think too, reminding yourself that like modeling these healthy habits and these behaviors and balance and nourishing yourself first is modeling that for your child. And so I think that is a game changer for me, because I don't ever want like my daughter being in a space when she has kids where she feels like she can't do anything for herself and is burnt out. So I think reminding yourself that it's all part of like teaching your kids healthy things as well.
Like normalizing it. Like this is just something we do.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. And I definitely have the guilt still, because my son is like Velcro, even though he's 4 years old. Like if I'm going out the door to work out, he almost inevitably will be like, no, don't go. Like, can I come? And so you do have to sometimes just kind of like let go of the guilt. No, he's safe and gonna have fun with my husband, and I need this time. And I kind of vocalize that to him now that he's older. But then just including them in the kitchen when you can, like it takes longer, but it's awesome for them to be able to do some food prep with you. And my daughter is kind of a little bit selective as an eater. And so I, really work with her on like protein, fat, fiber. Like she kind of knows like she would just have kind of like carbs all day. And so she knows like, what can I add that's protein? And so I think just being able to include them in all aspects is key.
I think that's what's cool about what we teach in Metabolism Makeover is like the PHFF strategy for your meals. It's not just for like mom's meals. It works for the kids too. It works for the whole family.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And I think being realistic about that too. So it's like you make it work for everybody. I like to just like take different parts of the meal. Like it might be kind of dissected and they have like, but it's like they have the meat and the cheese separate or whatever. And that makes it a lot easier too. Mm-hmm. And I think like the mental health space too, like kids have like overstimulating lives now too, just like us, right? Where there's just so much going on. So teaching that self-awareness and the mindset piece, like my kids know like about like taking a deep breath or, you know, like just teaching them coping mechanisms that we also need is key. And then they'll probably like remind you when you're losing your mind and they're like, why don't you take a deep breath, mom?
My 5-year-old will be like, mom, deep breath. Like when I'm driving, and he like does the little fingers. I don't know where he got the meditation fingers from. Be like, mom, deep breath. And I'm like, you're right.
Yeah, you're right. But I don't feel that way right now.
It's so funny. Well, like the kids pick up on, because I work with a lot of moms too. And one of mine, she was telling me that they just had like an off day of eating. They were out and about and they came home and her daughter's like, Mom, we had like no protein, no fruits and vegetables today. That's why my belly hurts. And she's like, you're not wrong.
Right? I know. It's amazing like how much they take in. It's crazy. Yeah. And then they start to notice how they're feeling, which is huge because I know I did not think that way. Like as a kid, it's awesome when they're like, oh, or like I've really worked with my daughter and my son now that he's a little older, but like when they're really cranky, I'm like, okay, like why don't you check in with yourself? Are you tired? Are you hungry? Do you need time alone? And so like my daughter especially, she'll just like, she's sassy now, right? So she'll like kind of like storm off because she needs time alone. But I'm like, good for you, girlfriend. Like don't ruin everybody else's mood. We got to check in with what's going on. But yeah, they take it all in for sure. And I think another piece that I just thought of, like Lindsay taught me this, but like thinking about rhythms, a lot of times I was trying to like fit a workout in right when my kids also like were at their heightened need for attention. So like you'll notice like when they're a little bit bigger, and Brianna can like probably she might have a little different, but like for my kids, like when they first wake up in the morning, they like need attention. Like they want to, you know, be cuddled and have like kind of doted on. And then after school, they want to tell you all the things. They're kind of like eager to be back with you. And so kind of playing on those rhythms, like instead of trying to do an after school workout, when I know my kids also need me a ton, I would shift that and really prioritize time with them after school. Maybe we'd all have a snack together. And then by like 5 o'clock, they were kind of over me and they were like doing their own thing. And then I could sneak in my workout. So I think paying attention to rhythms with your kids is key too, so that you're not forcing it. Do you kind of see that, Brianna?
Oh yeah. Yeah. There's certain things where I'm like, we're not even going to attempt that ever. Yeah. Like if I haven't got a workout in and it's about to be after school, like it's probably
not going to work. Yeah.
It's not. And like, instead of trying to fight it, I think that's very helpful of just knowing like, this is what my family needs. And also this is what I need, because I wasn't feeling good either, trying to like force it in. It was like, I think I'm doing more harm than good right now.
Yeah. You were like overstimulated. That's how I always felt. I was like, oh my God, like everybody quit talking to me. Like, you know, and so I think finding that rhythm for your family too. And everybody's different. Like some kids go to all day daycare. So maybe at 5, that's that time when it's just like not going to work. But by 7 or 7:30 after dinner, they're fine. So kind of playing to the rhythm of your own family and your kids to make it all fit, I think helps a lot too.
Yeah. And I know like, I mean, I still have a lot of motherhood ahead of me, right? Like my oldest is 11. So we're about to get into like all kinds of junior high, high school. And I know I have zero idea of like what that is, but just like, you know, seasons change and you'll find your groove in every season. I remember thinking like, you know, once after I had my second and he was like, oh, I don't do daycares. Like I don't do gym daycares. I don't do nothing. I remember thinking like, I'm never going to be able to go do anything on my own ever again. This is never going to happen. And then now it's like, okay, I was able to. I wasn't for what, you know, and then you kind of just like, you pivot and you kind of figure out what works best. But I think we are like creatures of habit that we want to do everything perfectly the exact same way every day. And I think just learning to be a little bit flexible is very helpful.
I think so too, because the seasons of motherhood are like you said, like the teenage years, you'll have to fill me in on that. I'm not quite there, but like I'm sure it'll look so different, and I'm sure like the kids will be gone way more often. And so I think really like recognizing those seasons, but then also like making yourself feel as good as possible in the season you're in, you know, like you said, like in that season when your second, was it, that wouldn't go to daycare, mine was like that too. And it's like, you're in that where it's like, this is just a lot. Like, try to get help, try to like ask for little windows of time for yourself, like navigate the season you're in, knowing that in 6 months it might be totally different.
I think one of the best things that I've read in one of my books has been, it talks about like doing routines instead of schedules. And I think that has been helpful for me, where it's just like, we're creating some type of routine, getting in some type of like plan, so to say, for the day, but it's not, I'm getting better about not being so scheduled. And I think that's helpful no matter what you're working on, is just try to find a consistent routines rather than the strict schedule of every week I have to work out Tuesday and Thursday. Like maybe next week, Thursday, you have a family dinner. Well, we can just adjust and create a different schedule. We still have that routine of getting 2 workouts in per week.
Yeah. I love that. I think having that like flexibility in your routine, but still having the habits is key, because like you said, like I feel like anytime I would make like hard set plans for anything for myself, you'd wake up with like a sick kid the next morning, right? Like, or like nobody would sleep the night before, whatever. So I think having that flexibility is so important. And that just continues on throughout like motherhood, and for anybody even without kids, I think, right? Like you can't, I talk about this with like meal prep, meal planning. Like, don't plan these like hardcore like cooking meals on nights where you're not home till 8 o'clock. Like, we have to be flexible with our routines and our schedules.
Like, we're giving you that permission. I think that's what it is. It's like a mom is like, you're just looking for someone to give you permission of like,
yeah,
this is normal. This is okay. If this doesn't work for you, don't do it, you know?
Like, yeah. I had a client there. One of our like things that we worked on was she was like first time mom, baby was like really, you know, like high energy, I don't know, 9 months old. And one of our like goals was to have an imperfect workout. Like, I want you to start a workout and not finish it. Like, and that was like really, really hard for her. And after she did it, it like freed up so much ability to like, if nap time like worked out, she could hop on the bike for 10 minutes and not feel guilty that she didn't do the whole workout. So I think that guilt and that pressure is huge. Like, it's a whole thing to work through.
And with these routines, what would you say are kind of the bare minimums for any mom to focus on? Because I mean, like we've kind of mentioned a few times, there are so many things between just taking care of yourself, taking care of the kids, like dinner, eating, water, electrolytes, movement, workout, the dishes, the laundry. And I'm like trying to figure out when's the best time I can shower.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think it changes with the seasons of mom life, but in those early postpartum days, I think putting the emphasis on, like, obviously as a dietitian, I also am a diabetes educator. So like blood sugar balance, I think is key. I like did a post on Instagram yesterday, and it's like, you know, blood sugar dysregulation, having blood sugars all over the map can lead to brain fog, anxiety, depression, all these things that are like not going to help you thrive in the postpartum period, and then just going to be snowballed with other things like sleep deprivation. And so I think if you had to pick in the postpartum season, like those first couple months, it would be eating enough, like making sure that you have purposeful, like PHFF type style meals that, or snacks, whatever it is. But you think about, if you're breastfeeding, you need like up to like 500 extra calories a day. Even if you're not breastfeeding and you're just recovering from delivery and or a C-section, whatever, you need extra nutrition. And so that would be my number one thing, is like, make sure you're eating enough. Doesn't have to look perfect, but make sure that there's enough fuel going in. With that, I think goes like hydration kind of hand in hand for sure. And then I think things that focus on mindset and stress, because I've seen so many moms that, and I was like this myself, that we have just so like the weight of the world on our shoulders, and we're not taking care of that mental health piece. And so For like you said, like going outside, Bailey, for you helps a lot. So that would be my non-negotiable, something on your list for like mental health. So maybe it is taking a shower. For some moms, it might just be like putting on like some sort of normal clothes instead of like being in spit up, you're going to be covered in spit up anyways, but like starting the day off in fresh clothes. Or maybe it's like your really like bougie skin time routine at night. Like don't skip that. Like do something that makes you feel good mentally, because I think mental health and then nourishing your body with enough food and hydration are like the two. So then simplifying that to a really like realistic non-negotiable for yourself. So with eating, maybe it's like I won't skip meals. Maybe that's like our non-negotiable for that period, because you have a lot going on. And then mental health, I'll be outside for 10 minutes minimum every day. So once you kind of have those overarching things, then pare it down to something that actually feels tangible for you.
I think that would be great advice for really any mom, is just, I think it truly does help to like get up and get ready for the day. And I'm not saying you need like everyone, like if you don't like wearing makeup, I'm not saying, oh, you have to start wearing makeup, but do just like what makes you feel good, even if it's changing your clothes. Because I mean, for that first week, like I was in my same clothes, I think, for 3 days.
You're like, do I have other clothes? Like, what is happening here?
These sweats are just very comfy. I'm not giving them up.
Right? Like taking time to just get up and get ready, like you feel so much better no matter like what it is. Just get ready for your day. And it sounds so silly, but it really does help, I think.
Yeah. And I think that carries on, like Brianna might feel this way too. Like even now I feel that way. Like if I get up and the morning has already started off like rushed and stressful, if I don't take that time to like, kind of put myself together, I feel like that same kind of energy that I felt in the postpartum period where I'm like, ugh, like I just feel kind of gross and rushed and all the things. And so I think that carries on throughout. Like take the few minutes in the morning to, do something that makes you feel good, whether it's everybody's kind of different, right? Like I could care less about makeup and my hair, but like if I have clothes that like feel nice, I'm like, okay, this is good. So yeah, I think that carries on throughout.
Yeah. And Lindsay, again, we always mention Lindsay.
I know, right?
So many great things.
She does.
And one of her, she said, like, pick like 1 or 3 things that are part of like your non-negotiable getting ready in the morning routines. So, like for me, like if I don't get to my hair, like I'm fine with like pulling it up in a quick bun. If I'm mascara, I want mascara on, because otherwise I just don't like it. It makes my face look sad. I don't know.
My eyelashes are like very blonde.
Tired. Yeah.
Like I look super tired. Or like I'm going to make sure I put my lotion on my face, because if I don't, it gets super dry, or I get like oily, dry face. It's super weird. So being able to decide those things as well, I think it's just helpful to feel good every day.
Yeah. Like what means the most to you? Because it's so different for everybody. So I think that's key. And then making sure it feels tangible. Like Lindsay talks about this. I talk to clients about this. Like having a really unrealistic morning routine is just setting yourself up for failure, and then like guilt and the whole thing. Like it's just this vicious cycle. So so be super realistic.
I think that's important, because I think, again, we are just like all or nothing people. And we think if we're going to start our day, like, oh, okay, I'm going to start my day, I'm going to prioritize on myself. Like we think we need this like hour-long morning routine.
Like, and I think this comes where it's like, okay, you also have to like play it by ear, kind of. Like I remember my daughter didn't sleep at all, like through the night until she was 1. Like, I'm not kidding. I feel like I was a zombie. Like I would commute for work. And one morning I called my husband. I'm like, I passed the exit. Like, I don't know that I was fully awake. Like I've done the same commute for years and I just blew right by. So I was putting a lot of pressure on myself to like get up and work out in the mornings. I'm like, why was I doing that? Like I wasn't even getting the bare minimum of sleep to survive, but I was going to get up at 5 a.m. to work out. So I think, figuring out like, okay, last night's sleep did not go well. So this morning is even my bare minimum morning routine. And then when you have a little more time and sleep was good, maybe you do get out the door for a 10-minute walk, and that's a priority. So again, like kind of that flexibility with routines, I think comes into play.
Another thing with routines, we talk about a lot in Metabolism Makeover when it comes to coffee. So coffee is like the mom juice. Yes. So we want to talk about that a little bit, about like starting your day with coffee? How should we start our day? Or like maybe a little bit about minerals and how they can be helpful?
Yeah, that's a good one. So I feel like with coffee, I think that it's really key to, like, obviously I'm very pro coffee. I was a barista all through college, and my dream is to open like a coffee shop one day. So I am not going to take your coffee away. But in that postpartum season, like, like Bailey mentioned, like not eating enough and skipping breakfast, maybe not eating till like 1 o'clock, that, and then drinking coffee all morning is really hard on our bodies, right? So it's going to negatively impact our cortisol levels. It's going to just kind of make us anxious and jittery, and our blood sugar is all off. And so I really encourage moms to really prioritize that breakfast first. And so you can have coffee with your breakfast, but I would try to avoid having coffee on a completely empty stomach. So if you can get up, maybe have water first, or if you are doing minerals, have those first, but do something besides caffeine until after you've eaten, or while you've eaten, or while you're eating, is really key. And then, minimizing it at least enough, especially if you're breastfeeding. I feel like I can't remember the exact milligrams. I want to say it's like 300 milligrams a day of caffeine. There's some limit that you want to try to stick to just with breastfeeding. But in general, if you have that cup of coffee in the morning, or like even a couple cups, and then that mid-afternoon slump hits and you're wanting more coffee, I would really dig into why. Like, are you eating enough? Did you get enough carbohydrates? Oftentimes that energy slump is related to carbs because we haven't eaten enough and now we have that blood sugar drop. And that would be an awesome time to do minerals or electrolytes. So any of the ones we mentioned, just like some salt water, like something that is going to, like lemon and salt water, replenish those minerals, because there's a book called, I think it's like the postnatal depletion. And it is fascinating because I don't feel like it's ever talked about, at least in like, normal, like Western medicine. Us as dietitians probably talk about it, but it's like all the minerals that are depleted between pregnancy and then actually delivery and then recovery and breastfeeding. And it's insane. So I think mineral drinks are key too. So basic takeaways, like, I would wait for caffeine or coffee until after you've eaten your breakfast. And then minerals are a great option, especially in that afternoon slump, is to like have a snack and some minerals, because caffeine's just going to kind of give you that false energy. And I think in the early period postpartum, like a lot of things are like anxiety inducing because we don't know. And like this baby is so reliant on us. And then now you're like drinking all this caffeine. So then you can be more jittery and have trouble sleeping, like when you finally lay down to sleep and then your like mind is racing. So I would be careful with caffeine overall, just to make sure that you're not using it as a crutch and then going overboard.
Easily done.
Yeah. Even still, I'm like, I deserve another coffee.
There's like, I had a motherhood journey like before I became a dietitian, and then a motherhood, once I was like studying to become a dietitian, and then one after like I kind of really knew what I was doing. I was like, wow, yeah, those are all very different. Like my good thing I was like 22 was my first one, because I wouldn't survive that. I would not have come back from how I treated myself.
I know the things we learn. Even with my first, I definitely drank too much caffeine. I'm sure I drank it on an empty stomach.
Like undersleeping, overworking out, wrecking my pelvic floor, just anxiety through the roof. Like I could do all the things.
Yeah. No. We live and we learn.
Like,
and then to tell you, Bailey, all the things that we did that were like, ooh, maybe I wouldn't recommend that. Didn't work so good for me.
No, I like look now, I'm like, okay, my stress, my adrenal fatigue. I'm like, I wonder where that stemmed from.
Right. Yeah, okay. I know.
This makes sense.
Yeah, it all adds up. That's what I always tell myself too. I'm like, okay, I'm like hard on my body sometimes, just from like, okay, it's been 4 years since I had a baby, but then I'm like, I did a lot of havoc, like through before babies and then during. So I realize you'll take time to heal. It's fine.
Be nice to you. I'm not going to revert back to my old ways.
Exactly.
Support our bodies, which I feel like moms just need to hear that more. Like support yourself, support yourself.
Yeah. And I think we as dietitians think it's like more like common knowledge, and it's not. So I think that's why like I'm so passionate about it, because if there's anything I can do to help moms like not feel that burnout as bad, or not feel like you know, 1, 2, 3 years after having babies that they've just like lost themselves. They don't even feel like themselves. Like, I think that is so important because like I've been there. I know a ton of my friends have been there where it's like, I had no idea that this is like how I was going to feel. And here are things looking back that I could have maybe done different that would have got me on a little bit different path. So that's why I'm like really passionate. I'm like, if I can help people cut back on the learning process, that'd be great.
Learn from my mistakes. You don't need to do that.
Exactly.
I've surrounded myself in our like dietitian community with like all of you have kids that are older. So like I can just learn from all of you.
That was smart. That was good planning on your part, even though it wasn't on purpose.
Yeah.
Yes. And pick our brains. Like that's what I always encourage moms too. It's like, ask like people. I think I like that trend that's like on Instagram where it's like moms that have kids over 10 and moms that have kids under 10 or whatever the ages are. Like the newer moms ask questions and the more like seasoned moms answer them. I think that's cool because like same, like with Brianna having like an almost like preteen, it's like we should reach out to her like when we have questions. Like we need to have that community because it sucks and feels so isolating when you're trying to do it all on your own and like form your own knowledge on every single thing. Like it's impossible. So
yeah, I feel like we could talk about this topic like all day.
I know, right?
So what if we ended it like if we each just want to say like a piece of advice for any mom out there? I would say mine would be just ask for help. It's okay. It's something that I'm working on. And you don't have to do it all. Lean into your people and it's going to make your life a lot easier. Not even just for moms, just for anyone. Just ask for help. Reach out to whoever. You're probably not bothering them. If you are, then maybe they're not a good person to have in your village anyway. So
I would agree with that.
Same. I feel like that was like good advice in general. Yeah.
Let's see. I think I have 2. So number 1, trust your mom gut because you're probably not wrong. And number 2, I would say don't sweat the small stuff. Like I feel like, and that's something I'm learning. And even now, like I know that's something I'm going to be learning, you know, more and more, but everything seems like a lot. Like every decision you make just feels like this is life altering. Like don't sweat the small stuff. Like think about how you want your kid to be as an adult and what characteristics you want them to have and focus on that. Nothing else matters really. Like what brand of baby food you use, or if you breastfeed, don't breastfeed. If you co-sleep, don't co-sleep. If you have a certain stroller.
If it works for you, it works.
And again, maybe that's just me being like, I'm jaded. It doesn't matter. But because now I'm like focusing on kids with, you know, like their mental health. Like, are they being bullied? Are they being nice? Like, are they, you know, how are they feeling? Are they secure? And like, you know, so don't sweat the small stuff.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's so important. And it's such a like big thing to remember in those early days. Like it continues to be a big thing, but like those early days, I just remember like decision fatigue. Like I literally don't know what to do because it seems like there were so many options. So I think that's really helpful. I think mine would be just as a mom to remember that like you are worth it. Like you are worth the investment of taking care of yourself and reminding yourself that you're like the integral part of like your family and your kids like need you to be as healthy and as happy as you can. And so I think that that's like something that I always need to remember. And that comes, you know, like making time for yourself, not feeling guilty when you're making time for yourself, all of that. But I would just remind yourself, like, I hear moms a lot like, well, like I can't invest in that right now for myself. But if it was for your kids, we would have done it 10 times already, you know, or like, I'm not going to take that 20, 30 minutes to go walk and go do something for myself. But I just spent 20 or 30 minutes like organizing my kids' drawers, right? Like making time for yourself and reminding yourself that you're worth it. Because the sooner we learn that as moms, I think then we can get into the mindset, like we can have the community, we feel comfortable reaching out to people. We have like what Brianna said, like about the don't sweat the small stuff, like the mindset stuff can come if we just kind of make time for ourselves and kind of just find a groove, because you don't need to lose yourself in motherhood. It just looks different.
You need to hear both of those.
We'll keep reminding you.
Yeah, exactly.
All
Yeah.
right. Well, thank you, Katie, for coming on. Like I said, I feel like we could
Thank
talk
you.
about all these things forever and ever.
I know. I think so too. And like it ever evolves as like mom, like that's why I think it's all relatable. Even if you have a tiny baby like you do or an 11-year-old, it doesn't, matter. It changes a bit, but it's all relatable. So
Do you want to share where people can find you, how they can work with you, etc.?
yeah. So my business name is Best Life Simplified. So on Instagram, it's at bestlife_simplified. And then I do postpartum one-on-one coaching through Metabolism Makeover. And then I also I can do one-on-one breastfeeding support. So virtual or in person, and I'm able to bill insurance for that. And then I also have a new program that is actually going to be the first round in August is Postpartum Revitalized, it's called. And so it kind of ties together all the things we've been talking about. It's 6 weeks of tons of different resources. We go over postpartum, like depletion, we go over mindset, sleep, like all the different components. But then in addition, we just have like this great community feel so that you have moms to reach out to for questions. You have support. You get access to like a breastfeeding course that I have. So that's another thing that if you follow me on Instagram, there's more information on that. And you can also email me at katie@bestlifesimplified.com. Those are the best ways. So yeah.
Good.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And we will also be dropping a bonus episode this week. We had a few people ask if I would share my birth story. So I will talk all about that in a bonus episode, and we'll be back next week. All right,
Thanks,
everyone,
guys.
have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye.